Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today back to working on my new Marvel saw. I probably saw a little video we did earlier where I had brought this in the shop and we did some rewiring of the motor to get it where it would switch over from 440 volts to 220 volts, three-phase, which is what I have here. I had to move some wiring around and so forth to do that. Since then, I did kind of off camera come in here and take some of this stuff apart to try to figure out a problem that we were having. So basically the way this saw works is when you turn it on, the blade turns, and basically the whole carriage will feed across the work that you're doing. You'll clamp the work to the table. There's some vices that go on here. I've got them off right now. I do have those pieces. And the blade just moves across and cuts your metal. It's a really, really handy tool. Really excited to have this in the shop. But my feed mechanism wasn't working. There's basically a power takeoff shaft that comes from the back of the machine, from the motor. See if I can keep from throwing it on the floor. And it engages into a little worm gear setup up here in the front, and that is basically what drives and pulls that into the saw. And we had multiple issues going on up here that we had to resolve. So let me show you what the problems were, and we're going to put this thing back together and hopefully get her back to working. So up in the front of the saw, there's a shaft that comes out, and when this shaft turns, basically it feeds that whole bandsaw head across. There's a chain in there that's on a track, and again, as it turns, it moves across. And there's a worm gear and a worm. So there's a gear and a worm that mount on this, and that goes to this power takeoff shaft we were talking about a minute ago, and that's what basically turns all that. So we had two big problems. So first off, on the power takeoff shaft, we had this piece here on the front that basically this shaft just turns in. This is a bearing surface, and this thing was froze up. I mean, it would not turn. It took a good bit of force for me to get it free. It was just rust and crud up in there. Once I got it out and cleaned it up, it's fine, but that thing was just froze solid. Looks like someone had not been oiling it along the way. And then the other problem that we had, let me get that out of the way, is the worm gear itself. So this is the original one, and this is a new one that I got, and you can see this is just worn out. Let me zoom in there a little bit closer so you can see that. So this is the one that was on here originally, and this is the new one, and over half of these teeth were they've been stripped out, and the worm that was driving it, it also had some wear in it as well. It wouldn't hardly grab. This new one that we've got, I mean, it is a positive engagement in there. So undoubtedly this thing was really slipping a lot, and probably why they had disconnected the belt back there and weren't even using this, and probably why that front part froze up. But we got a new worm and worm gear. I was able to order these parts. They were expensive. I think the two pieces here were about $350, which is about what I got in the whole saw. But this is what we need to get it fixed. So anyway, I was glad to be able to find those parts and be able to do them. So we're gonna put all this back together and hopefully get this thing back up and going. So while I had all these parts off, I cleaned everything up real good. This stuff was full of gunk and grime and what have you. First thing I'm going to do is put the little counterweight back on. This just swings on here, and there's a weight, kind of like an old scale, and the more you put on here, that's the pounds of force that it's putting. And basically it's just it's a lever, and it's pushing up on this piece down here, which engages that worm into it. And when you go down the other end, it basically takes all the pressure off of that shaft. So get that back on there. I'm gonna get me a little drop of oil and put down in there, make sure that thing stays oiled real good. Here we go. The next thing I need to do is get our worm gear back on. And I know this thing's going to be a little bit aggravating. This shaft has a little bit of a bend in it. I actually straightened it out. It looks like someone had bumped this thing with a forklift or something. And I'd straightened it out before I pulled it off. It's not perfectly straight, and it's probably going to give me a little bit of a trouble going back on, but I think we can get it. It slides on to about right there, and there's a flat in there that a set screw tightens on. I'm going to get a little something over there that I can slide over that shaft and see if I can just bump that right up on there. Let me see if I can find something. Well, I was looking for a piece of thick wall tubing or something, but I couldn't find anything. But I've got this little tap driver. I think this will work. And see if we can just knock that right on there. It's going without too much force, and once it gets over that little notch, it just goes right on there. So that's good. And let me get that set screw and tighten that back in there. See, I think that was the one that was in there. I'm gonna go see if I got a fresh one. That one's just full of gunk, and make sure I got good threads. There's the original set screw. I just went over and got a brand new one that same size. Go ahead and swap them out. I'm sure that old one would have worked fine, but I got a new one. This one's got nice, clean, good threads on it. Might as well put it in there. That's going to tighten up on that flat. Just milled in that shaft, and that should be perfect. All right. So this is the new worm. This is the old one, and honestly, probably could have gotten by with the original one. You can tell there's a little bit of wear on the leading edge of that where it engaged in the worm gear down there, but hey, we're just going to go ahead and swap them out, put a fresh one in there while we're doing this. Also, you probably can't see it on video, but it's actually, you can see that radius in there where it's kind of worn in the center to match that gear down below. But this is steel. The actual worm gear down there is bronze. The worm gear is designed to wear before this does. But yeah, we're just going to go ahead and swap them out since I've got the parts. So this just goes up on the shaft, and you can see there's a hole there for the set screw to go into. And again, I have got a new set screw here, making sure we got good fresh stuff. Get the right Allen wrench here, and we'll drop that right down into that hole, and that'll lock that into place. Very good. On the other end of the machine now, this is where the belt will power this power takeoff, and there's a pulley here that mounts to that. It's kind of interesting. There's little wooden dowels in here that come in contact with this plate here that's just a friction, and there's a bushing that fits up inside of here. So we're going to go ahead and put this on. The belt's kind of got to go all on it here at one time. All right, that's better. Let me get my bolts and put that in. There weren't any lock washers or anything like that under these. In fact, you can see up here there wasn't any on that either. You can actually see the impression from the hex head coming in contact down there. So I'm just going to put it on the same way it came out. Somebody will probably say, oh, you need a lock washer in there, but that's not the way it came from the factory, so we're just going to put it back together this way. There we go. I think that's back together. So back on the other end now, you can see the worm and the gear meshing with one another. We're also tied into this little weight system here. And next part is we need to put the little piece in the front that basically just moves this shaft up and down to engage and disengage the worm. I'll show you how that works. Up here on the very front, we got a little piece that fits in here. This is actually the shaft, or the bearing that supports this piece here. There's a little oiler on there. This is the part that was frozen up. There's a shoulder bolt that goes in right here that it pivots on. But on the back side of this, there's a linkage that goes between this pin in the machine and this little pin here. Notice we got a little cam shaped, or cam operation on the front right here. And when you turn this handle, basically what it's going to do is it's going to cause this to pivot up and down and move that worm in or out, disengage and engage it there. So that's how this all works. So first things first, I'm gonna really put some oil on that right there. Make sure we got good lubrication in there. And I'm gonna put my pin on this one. We'll slide that in there, put our pin on the back side here at the same time, and get our shoulder bolt aligned. That feels like it's going right there. And you can see the action. All right, let me tighten this shoulder bolt up. So now there's a cover that goes over all this just to protect stuff, like such. And got some socket cap screws that go in to fit this. I was going to replace these cap screws. I went over there and got new ones, but look, the heads are bigger on the new ones. They won't quite go down in there. I noticed these heads were a little bit smaller. We'll just use the old ones. There's nothing really wrong with them. Let's see. Now this cover serves a couple roles. Number one is to protect that gear, keep your fingers out of it, make sure no trash gets in there. But there's also a little well down here in the bottom. There's an oil cup here on the side. And what that does is that basically keeps all this lubricated. So when that gear comes around to the bottom, it dips into that and keeps everything lubricated. So we're going to start by just kind of filling that reservoir up down in the bottom. And I'm just bypassing the cup here. But that should be a good start. And next we have a hand wheel that fits up on this shaft that allows you to turn this by hand. But when I got this saw, notice this little knob. It was laying over in the front of the machine. Like I said, I think someone bumped this with a forklift. They bent this shaft, which I straightened out earlier off camera. But the knob was gone. I was fortunately able to get a pair of pliers and pull that little stub out that was in there. It's just pressed in. And thanks to my good friends at McMaster Car, one new handle, made in USA. This is a type that turns. It's got bearings in it, and it just presses in that hole. I'm gonna go over to the arbor press that in, and we'll be ready to put this back on. All right, our knob's pressed in there. Just went over the arbor press, pushed it in real easy. And we're ready to install this. So there's a Woodruff key slot right here that we're going to put on first. We will slide our handle up onto that slot like such. We'll roll it over 180 degrees. And on the other side, there's a slot in that shaft, just like before, for a set screw. And I got a brand new set screw we're going to put in here and tighten that on there. All right, and look at there, slick as snot. All right, so now we can easily move our head back and forth with the crank on the side. Still got just a little bit of wobble in it from where that shaft was bent. I can feel it, but not near as bad as it was. That's that worm gear catching. That's how deep this saw will cut, all the way up there. And when this machine is running and you engage the worm, it's going to automatically feed that across. All right. Let's get our vise put on here, and we'll be ready to try this thing out. There are two clamps that mount on the table that actually holds that vise in place where you can move it around. And I noticed when I was taking it apart that they were really stiff getting the screws out. So I'm just running a tap down. I'm gonna run them down both of these, just to clean those threads out, make sure we got good threads. And I felt it cutting a little bit. I think it was mostly just chips and trash, but I think some of those threads might have been just slightly deformed, so that should freshen them up. It's 3/4 inch tin The other thing I'm going to look for here is there's an oil cap right here. The oil caps are gone. Let me see. I may have a couple of oil caps that I can press in there. Let me look and see. Let's start by seeing if we can get this old cap out. I believe that's just a press in. Maybe threaded. No, it's a press in. And I have an assortment of little oil caps over here. And look at there. That one fits just fine. Tap that down in there. Problem is I've only got one of those. I'm gonna need two of them. I'll have to order one, but you can get them at MasterCar. I'll order a couple of spares while I'm getting them. And I like to keep some of these on hand because you run into those all the time. And like I said, you can pick them up at MasterCar. So next up, we need to get our vise mounted on here. This has an adjustable vise that you can basically set anywhere up on here you want to. It's got a front and a back that adjusts in the slot, or you can take it completely off. You can use these slots as T-slots and just bolt something straight down to the table. Say you got a big plate or something you need to put on here, no big deal. So this is the piece that goes down into the T-slot. There's actually, on either side of this, there's little notches in here that a little square diamond shaped piece clicks into, and there's this little spring loaded piece on the back that you can push down on, and when you do, it allows you to kind of adjust this wherever you want it. Once the springs kind of get in there, it just kind of, you can move it by pushing down that spring. So anyway, we're going to set this. We'll go ahead and set that on top of it. And, you know, that's about where I want it, right there. Kind of at the back end of that stroke. Tell you what, to get the maximum depth of cut here, we're going to clamp it right there, okay? And then I just take this set screw on the front, and it just clamps down onto this and basically sandwiches it all together. So we're going to put it right there. This side is what you would consider the fixed side. And when I say fixed side, I mean basically it's going to stay fixed most of the time. But you can move it if you need to. You just come in here and adjust it. But this one requires a set screw to do that. And let's get ahead and get it clamped down. It's moving forward a little bit. I see what's going to happen. It's going to jam between the back and the front here. So before it does, I want to kind of move this thing back again. That appears to be clamping down. It has this miter on this side. You can put the vise on the other side if you want to. When I got this, they were actually on the other side, but this is the side that they should be on. And it should be square based on the T-slots. I'll probably get a square or something come in here and just make sure those are exactly square. I'll do that in a little bit. I'm just want to get it on here and try it out right now. We'll check all that stuff out in a little bit. All right, back one is on. Let's put the front one on. So same thing here. We'll come in with our little clamp piece, and we will put our jaw on here. And on this side, instead of having a set screw, it actually has a crank that you can easily adjust without having to get a set screw out. I'm gonna put a little drop of oil on that. And I think what I want to do is get a piece of metal, and let's see if this will cut. I've got the blade that was on it when I got it. I don't know how good this blade is, but it looks like it's all right, so we'll try it out. Let me get a piece of metal. Zoom 32. All right, we have got a little block of, I'm just going to cut a little disc off of that. Tighten this up. let's see what happens. Moment of truth. I did move my guides up here just a little bit to clear. One thing I will note is you can flip these around, put the front jaw on the back and the back jaw on the front, and have that 45-degree angle and be able to lower your guides down a little bit lower. Or if you move the vise on this side, you want the 45s on there, because the whole head will tilt back to 45 degrees. So that gives you the clearance there. But anyway, let's try this thing out. There it goes. Look at it slice. And we're coming out the other side here. There we go. There is some stops over there on the other side that you cannot do it where it will automatically shut the saw off when it gets to a certain point. I don't have them adjusted out right now, but if you're doing a bunch of repetitive cutting, you can make it as soon as it comes through there, it just shuts the saw off. But there you go. Made easy work out of that. Next thing I need to do is, this machine does have coolant in it. I need to see if that coolant pump's working and maybe see if we can get all that going as well. But good news is we got her fixed. We got her working. Well, there we go. One more job checked off the list, and with that I have another new tool that we can use in the shop. This is a machine, I think I've said this already, this is a machine that I've been wanting for a really long time. Really like these marble saws. I know several people that have them. I've been on the lookout for one for quite some time. I saw this one come up in an auction up in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, and I bid on it, won it. Got a pretty good deal, and real happy to have it in the shop. And you know, anytime you buy something at auction, you're always, you know, am I buying a piece of junk? Is it going to work? Is, you know, there any problems with it? And yes, we did have a few problems with it when we got it, but nothing that couldn't be fixed with just a few little mechanical things. And yeah, it cost me a little bit extra money, but when all is said and done, when I look at the auction price, the auction fees, the tax, the parts that I had to buy to put on this thing, I've got less than $800 in this thing. That's a steal any day of the week. And again, it adds a lot of capability to my shop. This has been something I've been needing for a long time, so glad to have it. And now the big question is do I keep my do-all bandsaw and this one, or do I get rid of the do-all now that I have this one? Really, the do-all is more for freehand cutting than cross-cutting. Yeah, I'd really like to put this saw there where the do-all's at and save the room, but at the same time, that do-all is just a handy thing. I got to think about that. Might have to rearrange back there again and see if I can make room for both. But there we go. Check that off the list. Repairs done, tools ready to go. The saw blade that was on here appears to be cutting good. I'm going to go ahead and order me an extra blade or two just so that I have some when I need them. I leaned over to hit my emergency stop button. I thought I'd go ahead and click that off so I didn't wonder why it wasn't turning on next time I went to use it. But all's good. And with that, that'll be a wrap. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments are appreciated. Hit that bell icon to get notifications, and we'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.